Hello, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we'll be making this animation you're seeing on the screen right now. If you are a Blender beginner, don't worry, I got you covered. And if you are intermediate, just trying to do something for fun, you can skip to the timestamp where I start the animation and with no boring basic beginner explanation. So let's get right into it. Okay, before we start, we need to go over some settings. Now, go to your edit, um, scroll to preference. When you get to the preference, you see a whole lot of categories you can make changes on. Don't worry about the interface. Let's go straight to the input. Now, in the input, not the input, the navigation. Let's go to the navigation. In the navigation, we want to um, while we scroll with our mouse, we want it to orbit around our selection. So select this orbit around selection. Let me show you how it functions when there's no um, orbit around selection. So now when you rotate it, it doesn't rotate around my selection. It's just randomly um, rotate on where I initially um, stopped. So you can see this is like rotating a whole world, not precisely around a particular object. But if you want it to surround a particular object, that is your while you rotate your mouse, you have to orbit um, around selection. Select it, and then now when you on your selection, when you rotate, you see no matter where you have your object in the scene, it continues to rotate around that selection. Okay, so the next settings will be zoom to mouse position. So now let's go back. Let me show you what it means. So now if I have my mouse on this particular space of the screen, when I scroll, it doesn't scroll to my mouse selection. It just zooms into wherever. Like it just zooms into wherever. It doesn't zoom to a particular, it doesn't even zoom to my selection. So this is really important and it makes your work a lot um efficient, I guess. So zoom to mouse position. So now wherever you have your mouse in the scene, it zooms to that spot. So let's say you want to zoom to your object, you just put your mouse on the object and it zooms there. That's it. So what else? Come to system. Now when you are working and maybe you want to, you've made some mistakes and you want to go back, what do? You select the undo. Let's see, where do we have the undo? You see we have the undo, which the shortcut for it is Control Z, and then you have the redo, which the shortcut for it is Shift Control Z. So now you want to make your undos, but you can only undo 32 times here. I think the default is 64 or 32. You should see it on your own settings. I played with this a little bit, but you can increase it. You can increase your undo steps where you can undo it to, I don't know, 256. I think that's the maximum amount. So let's scroll and see. Yeah, 256. That's the maximum amount of undo you can do. I guess this should be enough for you to keep, undoing when you've made a mistake to you reach your final spot that you want to make changes at. Now for the rendering. So now when you come to this render space, don't worry, we'll get to rendering. When you get to this render space, we don't have to worry about EV because EV doesn't involve all these things you are seeing. This you can see is render devices. So now you can select it. Blender has three render engines, two that people love to use the most. It has cycles, it has EV, workbench, and then cycles. These EV and cycles are the ones that you can actually render image with colors, lighting, shadow, and whatever to get a bit of realism or a stylish art. Um, but a lot of people prefer to use circles because it gives most of the realistic, it's easy to get realism, but then it takes much of your GPU or CPU. It's resource intensive. Now um, we have to change the we have to change to the render engine to circles before we can apply these settings here. Now CUDA, if you have NVIDIA cards, you can see my own is 350 Ti laptop GPU. If you have a NVIDIA graphic card, it's going to see your NVIDIA graphic card here. However, if you do not have a NVIDIA graphic card, you can leave it at none, and it will just rest at CPU, or you can take it to GPU compute. When you take it to GPU compute, it's not functional because it doesn't support a graphic card. So you can leave it at CPU. I'm sure your CPU will do just about the what will give you a good result. It's just that it gives a faster result when you use one of these options, these two options, CUDA or optics. So now you can come to CUDA. When you come to CUDA, these sometimes will be unchecked. You have to check them yourself. So you can check, and how you can actually take it to the GPU, select on the GPU compute. This is how you have it. And then for the optics is just way faster. It's fast. It's, oh my god, it's very fast. I can't give you the particular estimation because I do not want to mess it up. But yeah, you can select also GPU. It's faster. For me, I'll be using optics. If you have just the right size of the graphic card, you can use optics. It works in hand with NVIDIA. So if you have an NVIDIA graphic card, it's going to work. So for the settings, for now, I guess that's all. You don't need to change anything again. So now, like I said, we are animating a camera. So now we have to bring our camera into the scene. So let's delete this cube because we will not be needing the cube. Now select the collection. You have to select the collection where you want your, immediately if you import your object, you want it to enter a particular selection. Now this is where you have your collection. You see the objects that you are using in the scene. Don't worry, when we get further you'll be able to understand this, but I'm going to have this on this collection. So let's come to file. I scroll down to import, and now when I go to file, I scroll down to import. You see so many file extensions that you can import into your Blender. We have OBJ, SVG, STL, FBX, GLB. Now these are the most popular file extensions that it's used in the 3D world. You have the GLB, FBX, STL, OBJ. Okay, but yeah, this is you sometimes you see this also DEA. So, but the model we'll be using is GLB. It's a GLB file format. So now I will select the GLB. It will open a folder for me. When it opens for you, because I mess around with this, but when it opens for you, this is what you will be seeing. The files are going to be like this, and when you select, let's say select on assets, there's no preview. But if you want to see a preview, you have to make it into large icons. So you go to this display mode. This display mode, you see a lot of types of display. Just come to this one with the bigger box um, for try squares. Yeah, you can select it. I almost forgot my shapes. All right, so now you have this. You now look where you saved your file. I saved it in the downloads. When I scroll down, and this is my camera GLB, I'm going to select it and then import it, and then immediately it imports into Blender. So now you it imports with an empty Now an empty is, we will discuss more about this further class, but in as we go further. Now an empty is just a shape that you don't see in the render, but it can be used to do a lot of things. One thing it can be used to do is hold the mesh. You can parent all these meshes. Now these, they come in separate. I drag them, I can drag this, I can drag this, I can drag this, because they are separate. They are not merged together, they are not joined together, right? And this one thing, because if I try to select them individually, I won't be able to move the whole camera. So this empty is there to, hold the whole camera when, and I can move this camera in whole. But I do not like the position this empty is at. I want it at the middle, and rather than moving just the, even when I select the whole mesh, it moves with the empty for some reason. I don't know. Rather than trying to move it to the position, move the empty only to the position I want, which is really difficult, I will just unparent it, unparent it with the empty. So Alt P, when you Alt P is to unparent. Let me show you something. When you come to object, you see where is the parent. You see parent here. So now you can parent to object, and you can clear parent. You can clear parent and keep transform. When I clear parent, these separate meshes have their own rotation and their own scale and their own location. When I just unclear parent directly, they can go in separate parts. Let's see. Let's use a shortcut. They might go in separate part, or in the scale might change a little bit. So let's try Alt P. Let's use a shortcut. Clear parent. So now you see what I'm talking. This we are lucky that the whole object didn't just get disfigured and every separate part was at its um, various location. But sometimes it happens with some meshes. So the best way to avoid that problem is control sorry, Alt P to clear parent, and then clear parent, keep transform. Now when you click on keep transform, it's going to keep the location of all the meshes at the spot that it is in right now. So let's clear parent and keep transform. So now you see it's not, the objects are no longer parented to this. I can move this individually, and I can select this all and move them all individually. So now we are going to have to delete this um, empty object, and then select on one on your numpad. If you have one on your numpad, you just press one and it gives you the front view. All right, so now you select A for full selection, that is A on your keyboard to select everything in your scene. And I'm going to move this, have it at the center. I guess this is okay. Yeah, this is all right. And then I'm going to now add a new parent object, which I'll be using an empty. So now I'm going to come here, Shift A to add. Your add menu, your add menu is here. You can click on add, and you can see various things that you can add into the scene. But right now I just want to add the the empty. So now you can see an empty here, plain axis, a lot of empties here. I want to use a cube. Like I said, empties are objects that won't be visible in your renders. So now I'm going to select everything except from the empty. So to unselect the empty, I'm going to select my control on my keyboard and left mouse button, then drag it and unselect my empty. All right, so I want to move this camera a little bit to the middle of the cube. I hope you can see it from my side. So now I'm going to move it downwards a little bit to center it inside the cube. All right, so now I'm going to move it backwards. How I just move on a particular axis, these lines are axis. Now you can move your objects on this line. We have y axis, x axis, and we have the z axis, which is doesn't have a line. You can enable the line if you want to, and you see there's a z-axis line, but it's just distracting. So I guess that's why they kept it out of the scene. All right, so now you can gy move this forward. Yeah. So G to G as in grab, or G for move, and then Y to move along the Y axis. GX to move along the Z X axis. GZ to move along the Z axis. G is to just randomly move it on the space. All right. So now that we've positioned our camera in the middle of the empty cube, I want to parent every part of the camera to the empty group. So I select A and then have this as my last selection. That is the active selection. Whenever it's showing um, a red yellow line, it's the active selection, which means is the object that it's going to determine what is going to happen to the other objects while everything is selected on the scene. And then the red selection is passive. It it doesn't have much effect on the other objects like it does on the active. So now to parent this object, this camera component to the empty cube, you have to make the empty cube selection an active. And like I said, it's yellow when it's active. Then you can control P for parent. Like it's here, add sorry, on the object. You can come here to, where is it? Here. You can come here to parent, and then you see it here, to object, parent to object. And the shortcut is Control P. Please do learn shortcuts in Blender. It makes your work faster. All right. So now we have to select it to the object and also keep transform. Like I did with the other example, we don't want it to lose location. So I'm going to keep it at the transform, keep transform. So now what it is, when I select on the cube, the whole object moves. The whole object moves, and then I can select this and their own separate component, but still be parented or attached to this cube. All right. So now when you look at this space, which is the outliner. Outliner is just a space for you to see whatever is in your scene, to see them here as text and the object data. Now we have some parented, some objects that we don't need. I'm going to delete this. So this is not a mesh. This, it means it's an empty. When you see a rectangle facing, when you see a triangle facing down, it's an object. But when you see this shape, this Y shape facing the side, it means it's an empty. We are not going to use these empties, so delete them. Delete, delete. We no longer have any other empty. So I'm going to move all these objects into this collection, because right now they are not inside the collection. Only the empty is inside the collection. So we want to move everything inside the collection to keep a clean and organized workspace. So now I'm going to select everything and then M on my keyboard, and then M is a shortcut to move to a collection. So I can create a new collection. I can move it to a particular collection. I can move it to the scene collection. Now it's in the scene collection. We don't want it in the scene collection. We want it in a particular collection, which is this collection. So we're going to move it here, and then we have everything in a collection. Now you can see, you can even hide it, and you no longer have it lined out like this in the space. And you can also name your collection. So you can name it object or model or whatever you want to name it. Just by double clicking here, it brings you a space where you can name them. All right, so that is about how you import your model and arrange it for animation. All right, now that we've imported our model into Blender, we need to actually prepare it and set it up for animation. We need to prepare the model and also set the scene up for animation. So on the works, we have so many workspace. If you look at the top bar of your menu item, or item menu or whatever, the top of your windows, you will see a lot of workspaces. Now this is the space we want to use. You can use any other space for your animation, but this is a preferable state workspace for that I like to create animation with. Let's go ahead and preview our model because we haven't really previewed our model but when we brought it into Blender. So before you make animation, we have to preview it because we want to make sure that every texture, everything is put in the right place and our object is actually optimized for animation. So now I'm previewing it because I imported the model as GLB. The creator of this model has done everything, so I don't need to make any edit to it or add anything to it. This is a really perfect model that we can use. As an animator, you don't need to make models by yourself. There are many models online, both free and paid, and you can get them. This I got for free. All right, so let's go ahead and start animating this. But before we start animating, and also let me tell you one thing. When I was importing the files, when I was importing this file, OBJ, FBX file format, you have to apply the textures yourselves. So you see this text, this canon, this texture right here, this letter texture, you have to apply them by yourselves. But with GLB, the textures and everything is applied for you. So all you need to do is import the model. I hope you understand that. All right. So now, after previewing it, there's something I want to do with the animation. I want to make an exploded view. So I want this part to come out, this part to be separate, this part to be separate, and also this part also. But if you see, if I drag this out now, you'll see that it is separated from these rotator things. I don't want them to be separated from the lens, so I want it to be part of the lens. So I'm going to have to join them by myself, because right now when I try to move the whole lens, I can't move the whole lens unless I select on everything, and which is really stressful and it's going to be daunting for animation. So now what I will do now is make sure that I join every part that I want it to be attached to the lens as I move it. So now I'm going to select this part also, then select the whole lens. This red dot also, this red part, I'm going to select it, select the lens, make the lens an active selection because I want to join the other object to the overall lens. So now let's see what we are not joining. We still have some parts. Select this, select this, this switch, select this switch also right here, and then also go back and select the lens. So now let's see what haven't we selected. I think for now we've selected everything. All right, so now when you select it, we can join it to the mesh, to the whole mesh. We can join the other parts to the lens. So now to join it, the shortcut is Control J and then it automatically joins. Let me see if there's a place where you can join the mesh here, because I've used shortcuts so very often. Okay, this is the join. So because I've used shortcuts so often, I usually forget where the operations are actually kept. But when you come to object and you scroll down, this is where you find your joint operation. So now Control J is the shortcut. I'll be using the shortcut. So Control J to join all the other parts of the lens to the actual lens. So now you see when I move this, all the other parts of the lens, I only get to select these ones and then move it around, and the other parts have been selected. So now I also want to select one other part, which is this part, but I have to keep this at the current location. So Control Z, Control Z. Then how I can click on it, these other parts are blocking it. they are blocking my view. I have to hide them. So now to hide them, you select on the lens and click on H to hide your object. So let's see if you have it here. If you have the hide operation here, I'm not sure we do, but the shortcut is H for hide. For hide, then you hide it. Hide this one too. Hide this one too. This is what I want to join to the mesh. Or should I leave it? Should I animate it? Should I leave it? You know what? Let's leave it. Let's leave it. All right. So now this text also is being separated from the lens. I want to add it to the cover of the lens. I want to join it to the cover of the lens. So I just select the text and then select the cover of the lens and then Control J to join them. And now when I move it, the text follows the cover of the lens. So yeah, I think we are done setting up our model for animation, and then now we'll go straight to the exciting part, which is the animation. Now on this side of our workspace, we have the timeline. The timeline is where you can add keyframes. Keyframes are like indicators for when we add an animation. So let me show you. When I select this, I want to animate the Canon camera using the empty object. So let me bring back the items menu. So N on your keyboard to bring back the items, to bring out the items menu. You can animate the object on each of the axes. You can animate it on X axis, Y axis, Z axis. You can animate the rotation, and also scale. So let's animate this on the X axis. I'm going to insert a single keyframe. And inside a keyframe, you right click on your mouse, you select the axis you want to animate, and then right click on your mouse, and then you see inside keyframes and inside single keyframes. When I click inside keyframes, it's going to animate on all the axes, but I don't want it to animate on all the axes. I just want it to animate on just the X axis. So I'm going to Control Z it to undo. And now when I right click again, I'm going to insert single keyframe. You see now it brings out this yellowish color indicating that I've added a keyframe. And then when you come to your timeline, you see this little yellow dot. It means I've inserted a keyframe. So it's telling me that now any movement that I make to it, it's going to capture it as an animation. So I'm going to move it. Let me move the time before I can add an animation. I've already add animation in, you see these numbers where you have one is just like frames. It's these numbers are also indicators that I've captured an animation in a particular let's say time or position. They are there to help me identify um at which point I added an animation. So I've added animation on frame 1. I'm going to also add animation on frame 50. So I scroll my scroller. This is my scroller. This is what I use to add my animations. So I'm going to scroll and drag it to 50 frame, and then frame 50, and then I'm going to, on frame 50, I'm going to move this object. I'm going to move it on the x-axis. So let me just move it on the x-axis using here, and then I'm going to insert a single keyframe. So now watch, we have an animation. So that's how you can add animations in Blender. Let's delete the keyframes, and to hide the items menu, I'm going to be using shortcut. All right, so now let's start creating the space for let's start creating the animation. I'm going to add my camera. So I'll come here, add camera, add a collection for camera, just to keep things organized. Camera. I'm going to add Shift A to add Shift A. When I click on Shift A, I'll scroll down to here. You'll see the camera, and then I'm going to just add the camera to the scene. Now the camera is going to be rotated in a weird angle, which we don't want. We want it facing the direction of the Canon camera product. So I'm going to bring back my items menu, where you can zero the rotation, location, and also the scale of this. But we are not going to be touching the scale. It's just the location and it's just even the rotation that I want to have it at a zero space, so that it will come back to the actual default. I want to reset it to come back to a default position. So I'm going to select everything here from X to Z. I'm going to select, I can make changes on all the three axes by now I'm going to left click and hold on my left mouse button, left click, hold on it, then drag it all the way. I've selected all the axes, and then I'm going to release it. Then I'm going to input the digits that I want it to be at. I want it to be 0, so I'm going to just select 0 on my keyboard, enter. So now I'm going to move the camera backwards. Then on, let's see, yep, then rotate it on Z axis, give it 180 angle of 180 degrees, and then on X axis I'm going to give it angle of 90 degrees or minus 90 degrees. Let's see what we have. Nope, I'm going to move it. I'm going to move the camera here. Yes, it should be in front of the Canon. So I'm going to reset this back to minus 180 degrees, and then give it a rotation of 90 degrees on the x-axis. So let's come to here and do the preview space and see what we have. This is a preview space. You can see it doesn't have all the other items. It doesn't have the floor. It only has the Canon. It doesn't have no axis. It's just clean and clear for you, so that you can see what you're working with. So now I'm going to select 0 on my numpad to have it on the camera. So now I'm looking at this Canon from the camera view. So I'm going to drag this back to this point, to about this point. When I have it at the location I want, I'm going to change the focal length. Let's go to the camera properties, and the focal length is on 50 millimeters. I want it to be at 95 millimeters. So now for product shots, you can have your focal length from the range of 50 to 120 millimeters. It's all good for the focal length. Now the focal length is how close or distant the lens is from your object. So I'm going to have the focal length at 95 millimeters. Can have yours at 120 or 80. It's all preferable for product shots. So I'm going to have mine at 95. That's what I prefer. And then I'm just going to start with the animation. Select the empty object here, G, Y on the Y axis, bring it to this, or wait, on this point I'm going to add a keyframe of 100. But before I add a keyframe, I forgot to do something. So I will come to the output properties. On the output properties, I'm going to change the frame rate. So the frame rate is just like how many images you want per second. So this is 24. How many frames, sorry, you want per second. So this is 24 frames per second. 24 frames per second is like is a decent frame rate, but to have a really nice and smooth frame rate in 3D, 60 frame per second is more preferable. So I'm going to have it at 60 frame per second. So now this animation is going to be really smooth and less choppy. And then what else again? What on the frame start, it's 1. You can see here the frame start, it starts at 1. Let me zoom it so that you can see it starts at 1. So I'm going to have mine end at 500. This is the end. You can also limit the end, so I'm going to have it at 500. It's at frame 500. We are going to end the animation. So this is what we have. So on frame 100, I'm going to insert a keyframe. Frame 100, I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'm going to insert a keyframe for the location and rotation. You can insert keyframe on the individual origin. So I'm going to insert location, my keyframe at the location rotation. So inside keyframe, we've inserted our keyframe, then take it back and then drag it drag it to somewhere like this. I want the camera to, I'm going to drag the camera to this point. Yes, so this is where we are going to be looking at camera from. I'm going to drag it backwards to something like this. Should I drag it backwards more? Um, yeah, where it's dark, I guess. So, and I insert location rotation. So when I play the animation, you can see that we have a animation that reveals the camera. Yeah, this is what we have. So I'm going to also change the rotation of this. I like that it's at this position, but I want to give it a more interesting rotation. So I'm going to click on one, go to the front view, and then I'm going to just rotate it. So now when you select R, you rotate it on a single axis, but when you double R, you can give it a rotation in in a random axis. So I'm going to have it like this, something like this rotation. Just give it an interesting. I want the camera lens to also be facing the camera lens of the Nikon to also be facing the camera. So something like this. Just going to I think we are having yep. I think I'm okay with it at this position for now. I'm just going to move it something like this. So now I insert to replace the keyframe that we have on location and rotation. All right, then go back. Let's play the animation and see what we have. So now you see it has an interesting, not just movement, but also the rotation. All right, so now I'm also going to start animating this the other properties, other camera properties, like the lens cap and also the lens glass. Now on frame 100, I'm going to insert a keyframe for this animation, but I have to bring it to frame 200 to have it at the default location so that it goes back when I want it to have an exploded view. So I'm going to add a keyframe here so it actually goes back to the default location when it's out, when it pops out. So I'm going to add location rotation, hide this also inside keyframe, location rotation, hide this inside a keyframe, location and rotation, hide this inside a keyframe, L, sorry, I, location rotation. So I think we've, yep, so let's unhide everything. And then I'm going to start with the lens cover, bring it to frame 100. All right, and then G, Z, Z. Now when you click on G and select your axis, that is the Z axis, you'll see that it can go up and down, but then you can have it at the local orientation where to move along the rotation of your object. So G, Z, Z, tap double tap Z to have it at the local orientation, and then I'm going to drag it to this point. Let's see, yeah, to this point is okay. I'm going to I, location rotation inside a keyframe. Then what else? Yes, this G, Z, Z, or G, Y, Y. I'm going to have it here. I, location rotation, and then select this also, G, Z, location rotation. Then I'm going to move this also, G, Z, Y, Y, and then I'm also going to have it here, insert location rotation. So now that we've added all the keyframes, let's go ahead, let's play the animation and see what we have. Okay, we're having a bit of an issue here, but no problem. I don't want it to come out with the exploded view like this. I want it to actually start at this point, then at some point it's going to come out. So I'm going to move this to frame of 120 for now. So I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D, and have this at 100. Let's see what we have now. What? Still playing weird. Okay, so I need to do this for all the other objects. So I'm going to select A, and then, or let's just come here, not A, let's come here and then select the other objects also. Then we are going to, I'm also going to do the same thing, Shift D, have it at 100. So now, I'm coming, let me Control Z, I made a mistake. Yeah, I think this is it. All right, so I'm going to select everything and select, okay. Which of these did I? Yes, I'm going to select everything. Let's see what we have. Okay, so I'm just going to select this, duplicate it, bring it to this point. So now let's see what we have. But this other, okay, I have to move them back. Also have to move this back. Just this. Move them back. G to, let's say, frame 120. Let's have it at frame 120, and then this also I've already had it at frame 120. So now duplicate everything. Yeah, then this is what we have. It comes out, it, it comes out like this, then goes back. Okay. This is nice. But I'm going to then alt this again, add frame, add frame 300. I'm going to give it a slight rotation while the it, the explosion animation is taking on. So I'm going to select this R Y, something like this. So I'm going to add location rotation. Let's see what we have. So you can see the animation just doesn't pop out, but it also rotates while we have the exploded view animation. So now at frame 360, I'm also going to add an animation. I'm going to have the rotation go back to its normal position. So I'm going to select everything here on the items menu and select zero it, and then add the keyframe by just clicking on I've added my keyframe. So now let's see what we have. Let me hide the items menu. So when I select the animation, you see it rotates back from where it started. So let's see. And then it has a 360 rotation, and then it just stops. Okay, so on this at this point, let me bring back this. Now that we've added our 360 rotation, it's a bit too quick. I want it to be slower, so I'm just going to drag this keyframe to the frame of 400. Let's see what we have. All right, now it has more of a slower motion. So at 360, I'm also going to give it a bit of an interest. So I'm just going to GZ, move it up a little bit, something like this. And then location rotation. Let's see what we have. Okay, not enough, so I'm going to GZ, location rotation. Let's see what we have. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to bring it down also to the middle, location rotation. So let's see. See now, while rotating, you see it makes a little jump and comes back, which adds a bit of an interest to the animation. It makes it a bit less boring. Right. Now that we have animation for the Canon camera, I want to animate camera also, because at this point on the preview, when the camera pops out, you see that it's out of the frame. I don't want it to be out of the frame, so in that case I will have to animate the camera. So I'll go back here and then go back to come to this point, frame 100, where the pop in out starts. That's where I want to animate the camera. So I'm going to I just the location, insert location, and then at where let's see, at frame 120, I'm going to move it No, sorry, I'm going to move the camera to this point and then move it here to centered in, and then move it up something like this, and insert keyframe on the location. So let's see what we have. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so for the explosion, you can see the pop out, it's quick, and then the rest, when it goes back to its normal location, it goes back in slow. That's not the effect I want to have. I want to have much of a slow effect then fast. I want it to start from slow to fast, not from fast to slow. So I'll have to move the keyframes. So I'm going to select all of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Select all of them, then select it here, then move it closer to, let's say, 180. Let's see what we have. Slow, then goes back. Slow, then goes back quick. But the jump is too quick. Let's see if you can have it at 165. That's slow, then goes back. Yep, at 125 is just about the right frame. Okay, so now that we have our animation, I'm just going to adjusting it to make it look nicer. At this point also, you can see the quick stop. It's just stiff, just stops. Like, no, that's not what I want. It doesn't look pleasing. So I'm going to move this to 420, I guess, or 440. I don't know. That's the stop. I'm going to have it at 440. Let's see what we have. So at this point, 420. I think this is where I will be adding an animation. So instead of rather it having this quick stop, I want it to have like a bounce effect. So I'm going to rotate it on Z axis. I'm going to give it this rotation. Let's see, inside location rotation. So let's see what we have. You see it has like a bounce effect. Let me see if I can. Okay, I don't know if I can add another bounce effect. So let's go G. Well, let's leave it at this. But now the camera is at a weird location, so let's bring it back to where is it, at frame 100. Let's go back to, let's say, here. Let's see. At some point I want it to go back, so maybe at frame 380. Then also at frame or um and at frame 500 I'm going to have the camera just um enter the into the Canon project. So let me just make the animation so you have an idea of what I want to achieve. Something like this, where it started, it's going to end here. But at this point, it's just going to go back to dark eye, location, rotation. Now let's see what we have. Yeah, and then it goes back. But I'm going to move this to frame 400. So now let's see what we have. Let's look at the overall animation. Yep, and now we have this. Yeah, you have your camera animation. So now what you do now is just keep refining the animation till you have um the best effect. This right now it's all right, but I want to add um make some ease in, some ease out, and also, oh, sorry, I've already made an ease in and ease out with the camera. I also want to, yes, I want to make some ease in, some ease out, and then I want to use the curves to give me a bit of a time ramp, a speed ramp. A speed ramp is your animation starts low, or your animation starts slow, then gets fast, then goes back to being slow, or your animation starts fast, then gets slow, then goes back to being fast. So on this timeline, I'm going to select everything on A. Then on the timeline, I'm going to select all the keyframes A, and then click on T. I want to have the interpolation at Bezier. So I'm going to have the interpolation at Bezier. So now let's play the animation and see. So after having the interpolation at Bezier, I'm going to add another Windows, which is the workspace for the graph editor. The graph editor is the Windows I want to add. So this is the workspace for the curves, and you can define your animation using curves. So if you these are the curves, if you make the curve smooth, it means you are going for a smooth, easy. So let me make this smoother. Okay, so now when you drop down on object transform, you see the locations. So on the X rotation Euler, this is the curve that represents the X location. So here I'm going to, when you select here, it's going to highlight which of the curves. Now this is the curves for the Y. So on the X rotation, I'm going to make this smooth by dragging it. Let's see what we have. You can make it smooth by just adjusting the handles. These are the handles that I'm adjusting right now. Right, having a smooth animation is the key. Okay, like this, something like this. Yep. And then also on the new location, on the Y, I'm going to make this smooth. Move this like this. Let's see what we have now. So now you can even see the time ramp has beginning to take effect on the object. It comes slow, then goes back to being fast. So I'm going to do for the camera also. So on this axis, I'm going to make it smoother. You can see it's just too sharp. Like this. select the handle, curve it a little bit, this handle, curve it. Let's see, let's play the animation and see what we have. Take it back, let's play. And this is just way too fast, so I'm going to make it a bit slower. So I'm going to select this now, make it a bit smoother, I mean. So I don't want to bore you with this process, so I'll go ahead and make this process behind the camera. Just play with the curves. You can also go ahead and play with the curves, and then I'll be back. I'll show my result, and then if you want, you can keep your animation at this point. If you want, you can make it a bit interesting by just stretching, expanding, and moving the curves. After messing around with the curves, this is the final result that I got, and I'm satisfied with it. So I'm just going to move on to let me show you the final result. So from now on, I'm just going to move to the lighting and setting up my background. So let's create a new collection for the lighting. I'm going to create this. I'm going to call it light. And then I'll start by adding Shift A to add an object. The object we'll be adding is the light. Let's go down to our light, and I'll be adding the area light. So I'm going to select it, bring it back to directly face the Canon, move it up, take it close, and then I'll put it on the rendered view here, so that I'll see how now this scene is really dark. I have to increase the intensity of the light. So I'm going to go to my light properties. I'll increase it to 1000. See what we have. I'm liking this with back a little bit. Let's see. Yep. Okay. So what else? Let me move this to this point. Oh, however, despite the intensity of the area light is strong, and you can partly see the products. I'm still not satisfied with the lights. I want the product to be well lit up all around, so I'm going to add more lights. So let's take it, I think leaving it as at this angle is okay. So I'm just going to add more lights. This is one way you can do it. You can keep adding more lights to the places or to the part of your product that you want to lit up. However, this is adding more lights to your scene is not necessary. It can get a bit tasky and a bit difficult to control. So what I'll do is I'll use an object, then give it an emission shader. With that object, I'll be able to lit up all the other parts of or equally distribute the lights to the product. So for the object, I'll be using a circle. Just you watch and see. I'll make this a bit bigger. Go to edit mode, extrude on Z axis with, okay, let me have it at vertices, extrude on Z axis, take it down, take it up. I think this is what we have. Then I'll come to the shader editor. Let me have this at rendered. At the shader editor, I'm going to add so 0. I'm going to add and a shader and emission shader to this. So I'll just go ahead and delete this and then add shader, add emission shader to it, and then you can see that my product is looks nicer now. But this object is covering the camera, because when I have it on camera view, all you see is just light. Let me remove it from the camera view so that you can see. So you come to the object property. On the visibility, let's go and uncheck camera. So now we can see our object. I can increase the intensity of this, maybe make it 5. I think 5 is too much, so let's give it 3. All right, 3 is okay. Some of the parts are still dark, like this part is dark. I don't want it to be dark, so I'll just use my area lamp that I've added before. Let's go back to the animation workspace. So now I'm going to bring this back to the bottom, and then I'll have this at let's see, 300. Increase the size to 5. Okay, I'm going to increase it to 3. Then maybe have it at 500. All right, so yeah, I think this is okay. So let's see, let's play the animation and see what we have. Okay, this glass is too shiny, so let me increase the intensity of this to maybe have it at 1. I think it's okay like this. I won't be needing the back of this because it won't be showing. The camera will go behind the object. Only the object rotates. So I'm going to delete this. We don't need the lights behind it. Although this highlight behind the camera are nice, but overall we don't really need this before we have a nice highlight. So X, delete the faces. Don't worry, I'll be adding a background. This scene is looking really dark. If you want, you can leave it like this, but I'll be adding a background. Create a collection for my background, give it BG for background, then add a plane S5, S10, Z, rotate it to 90 degrees, G, Y, bring it back. Nice background, but I want it to have a gradient fall off. I want the background to start from light, then transition to dark. I want it to have a slow, smooth transition. So let's go and let me turn this into the shader editor and create a new material for this. For this, I won't be needing the principal BSDF, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to create the gradient. Look for the gradient texture, drag it, plug color on surface, and we already having the gradient effect. You can see now it starts from a light, then it's getting really dark at the edges, but I don't want it at the edges. I want to have it at the middle. And also, as I have it at the middle, I want it to start from like a circle, then go all the way. So I'm going to change here this linear, I'm going to change it to spherical. So now you can see it's now it's curved like a circle, but this is probably a pie. It's in a pie shape. I don't want it in a pie shape. It is a full circle, but because it's not shown, it's too big and the angle is not fixed in the center, that's why you're seeing this pie shape. So I'm going to make this circle at the center. With that, I'm going to need my the texture coordinate. So texture coordinate, but before adding the texture coordinate, I'm going to add the color ramp so that I can change the color of the object, color ramp, and also influence the fall off. So I'm going to plug the color ramp to vector, or rather, let's say plug the color ramp to surface, then bring this back color to factor. Now we have this. So now you can see the fall off is a bit sharp than we used to have it before. So from this linear, I'm going to change it to ease. So now you can see really soft transition. um before I add color, before I add a color to my gradient, to the background, let's add a texture coordinate, or let's just write coordinate. This is it, texture coordinate. I'm going to have it at vector. I'm having something, some somewhat of an effect. Then I'm going to add mapping. I'll be using this mapping to control the the location of this. So let's see. First, let me remove this from generate to put it at have it at object. So now you can see now that I've had my the object plugged into the vector. It's a bit, it's centered in. So I'm going to reduce the size. The size is just too much. This circle here is just too much. So I'm going to have it at, let's say, 3.5. Now I like this size. um it's better. So let's see if I can move this. Let me just move it at the extreme edge. So now I'm going to start adding colors. I want it to have a bit of a grayish blue color. Grayish blue. Then make it darker. Also, I'm going to color pick to sample this color, then make this a bit lighter. So now you can see the gradient. It progressively keeps it from light, then it progressively gets dark and then darker. And now this is what we have. So let's play the animation and see. Go to the timeline so that you can bring out your play button. Play the animation. And now we have this. But the one problem now that I have is when it gets into the scene, it gets from really dark to light, and this transition is just quick. I don't want that effect. Maybe you can use it in your own animation, keep it as a nice effect, but I don't like that effect. So I'm going to animate the light along with the canon. So I'm going to move this back. So wait, at frame 100, I'm going to add a keyframe. So I just the location and then move it back to this point and then move it here, and I location. So now the light also follows the canon. So there isn't this transition from really dark to light. It just goes from, entering into the scene and then the lights having effect on it. So now this is what we have. Let's see if I have, okay, the wall color is on, it's on 0. I prefer to have it on 0. So now I'm going to, I think I have my final result. So now I'm going to set up the render settings. So for the render settings, this is the output. This is where we have where we want to use as an output. So first I'll go to the render settings and see what I can change. So for the samples, less samples give you not much of a good quality. But to have good quality, you don't need as much samples, because what samples does is to make sure that you have the best denoising. Once the sampling is to 64, um, once you have 64 samples, I think you are good to go. But if you want it to be really, really good, you can have it at 128 of the samples of 128, but of course at the expense of your GPU or CPU. So I'm going to leave mine at I'm going to render mine at 32 just for the sake of this tutorial. So I'll go to film, Film, I'm going to have my background at transparent. So because now if I put on the scene, the background is dark, it has color, but the color is dark. I'm going to have mine at transparent. I find out that it gives faster render. I'm going to scroll down for the color management. I'm going to have it at high contrast. So now you see the color are a bit nicer, and a bit warm. So this is what we have now at the render settings. For now, I think we are okay. With these render settings, we are good to go. Then I'll go to the output settings. On the output settings, um, I want to output this as an PNG. So I'm going to select PNG. So now you can output it as FFmpeg video. It will render directly to video. But the problem with rendering directly from video, or from using your circles render directly to render to video, is that when you are rendering, the your render might crash or your battery might run down, and if anything happens that disturbs or distracts the render, or you won't be able, you have to restart the render again. But when you go to PNG, when you use PNG, you don't have to restart the render. What you have to do is um override the render when it stops. So it's going to render images in frames. It's going to render 500 images because now we have 500 frames. Then from that 500 images, you put them together as an image sequence and then convert them to video, which I will show how to do in this tutorial. So let's just render as PNG. Select where you want to keep your video. I'm going to select mine. Already rendered it for test. So I'm just going to override this and keep it here. And so what else? The settings are good. So now all you have to do is click on render and wait for it to render animation. Make sure it's on render animation, because if you put render image, it's just going to render one image. So render animation. Now just wait for it to finish rendering. Oops, sorry. This is really quick. Wasn't expecting it to be this quick. So now when your render is done, you now have to put the images together um, and turn them into a moving a video. So let's bring this to the scene so that I will show you. So now when you render it in your folder, it will render like this. So you have to you have to convert all these images into animation. So you see it renders up to 500 frames. So you come to the video editing tab. If you don't have the video editing tab in your Windows, you just come here, click plus, and then when you go to video editing, select video editing. So now on this page, you have to import the image sequence as whole. So you come to image, sorry, not image, you come to add image sequence. Then go to the folder where you saved your image sequence. I saved mine at documents. Where did I even save it? um Camera animation. So select everything by clicking on A, then add image sequence. So now let's play this and see. Play. So you see now it plays as animation. Right. So now that you have this, what will you do? What will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Now that you have this, you have to render it out. So to render it out, you come to the output settings, change this. Now you can finally change this from PNG to FFmpeg. So go to the encoding. from change the container to matroska to mp4 mpeg. So now you can leave all these other settings at default. So now you come to render again, render animation, and it starts to render your image sequences. So now when this render is done, it will save the file. Also, don't forget where you save the file. You have to save it at the output. So when it's done rendering, you'll see the final result. So now it's done rendering. Let's go to the folder where we saved it and look at our animation. So I'm going to drag this here, videos. Now this is a folder where I saved it. So let's play the animation and see. Drag this, and we have this. Congratulations, you've made your first, or you've made your animation as a beginner. And yeah, welcome to the Blender community. Thank you for watching the video. Please leave a subscribe and like my video if you enjoy it.